Hey,
Awesome.
everybody. This is Carrie with Unleashed, the YouTube show. I have a guest here today, Jason. This is the first time I've talked to him. I think we messaged like briefly on
Yeah.
Facebook Messenger when we first came across each other in one of the masterminds we're in together. But really, everything he's saying here, except for 2 minutes prior to me pressing record, it is all news to me. So, um, I actually really like that. I think it'll make for a better conversation than
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So do I don't even know. Do you have a podcast or a YouTube show or anything like that?
No, not currently. I'm thinking of starting a podcast very soon. We've started one before, but we just want to have enough free time from all of the other stuff that we're doing. So, yeah.
So why don't you tell us about that? What is all the other stuff you're doing? Who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah. So I run a digital marketing agency. We have been running for about 2 years now. We service clients from, any sort of local business, hairdressers, nail salons, all of that sort of thing, all the way up to we have, $200 million a year clients to, dominating Australia and stuff like that. So we service a whole bunch of different clients, which is cool. It's interesting challenges. And I think that, there's a lot of people that say, oh yeah, you need to, niche down and stuff like that. And I'm actually really glad that we didn't, because we got to learn so many different, from different businesses. And we also grew by taking what we learned in these big businesses and applying it to the small businesses. So that's been really helpful for us. And then now we're also branching into a more education and training. We're helping other small digital marketing agencies scale their business from, really nothing to, and our goal is to get as many 10K a month people as possible through, which is really exciting, and it's really enjoyable. I mean, we've already achieved that and we haven't even released the training. Like, someone took one of our free trainings and he scored a 20K a month client, which was huge. And that was just one little piece of training that we gave him. So that's really rewarding, and I'm really enjoying that side of things as well.
Wow, that's really awesome. I need to get more involved in
Yeah.
your group.
Yeah,
I
right.
I feel like what you do. So Jason has this Facebook group where he's through it, he's teaching people and helping people make connections, teaching people digital marketing. And I'm in the group, but I feel like it's a little ahead of where I'm at right now, but hopefully I'll
Yeah.
be there soon. Sounds
Yeah.
like I need to get started more.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like some of the people in there are like, they range from experience. There's a couple of people in there who have been doing this for a long time, and there's a couple of people who are fairly new to this. And the people that are fairly new are getting the best results, because a lot of the advice we giving, I wish I had and to give myself when I first started. And it's stuff that's very actionable. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, you need to do this with your Facebook ad campaign, you need to do this. No, it's like, one of our strategies is go and speak to your family, tell them about your business, tell them about what you do. And then anytime that your family's in a conversation, they will tell other people and you'll get business. That's how I got my first client. Is my mom, like, literally the day after I said, this is what I want to do, mom, she goes out, speaks to someone, brings home a client. I'm like, oh, awesome. I need you.
That's amazing. Amazing that you had
Yeah.
family that supported you like that too, and weren't like, okay, you go have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm pretty lucky, and a lot of people aren't so lucky. My dad hasn't had a job since he was 20, like my age. He's always run his own business. And he's run several businesses, very successful businesses. And my mum, since they've been together, has always been by his side as well, running the businesses. She's been doing things on her own as well. So I'm pretty lucky that I was born into an entrepreneurial family. And my dad's dad also was an entrepreneur. Like, he ran bars, and he was very like, I was introduced to a new phrase in Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins,
Yes.
knuckle dragger. That was my dad's dad. He was a knuckle dragger. So he was very, hard work. Like, anytime that there was like coins on the floor, he would make my dad pick them up and put them in the bag so they would save up for holidays and stuff like that. So that's been my upbringing. My dad's not a knuckle dragger. He's very calm and nice. He's very much like me, but he's been very influential in like our entrepreneurial journey.
It's great to have those influences.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So and you're 25,
Yes.
right? And
20,
this is
25 in a couple of weeks.
okay. Um, this is your company, and you keep saying we. So who's
Yeah,
like who's the we when you say we?
my brother, who's my business partner, and I always say we because I mean I started it first of all, and then I actually it's so funny. I started the business, and then I got my brother's boss in Sydney. He was in real estate to become a client, and then my brother, I was getting paid from my brother's boss, but my brother was doing all of the work in the end. I was doing a lot of it up the front, but then Chris was like, I can do this. I'm really good at it. And he was taking a lot of the control. So he was actually doing a lot of the work, which was really cool. And then I was like, bro, like, why don't you just join me? So that's how we got started. And like, we both are really complementary. So both, every time we speak in podcast or anything like that, we always say we, because it's, it's been such a joint venture from, the get-go.
That's neat. So a sort of accidental family business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we always talked about it. We always wanted to work together, but this kind of opportunity came, and we were both in real estate. Like, he was selling real estate in Sydney. I was selling real estate in New York City. We both weren't really selling a lot, but we were doing it. So, and we wanted to work together in real estate, but then we decided, we'll jump in this marketing thing. So, yeah.
And for the people listening, you're in Australia now.
Yes. Yep.
You live there. You were born there.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I brought you here, or you volunteered to come here because I was looking for guests who had difficult or unusual school experiences, and you said, hey, that's me.
Yep.
So tell me everything we want to know. What was school like for you, and when you were little versus older? Was it the same all the way through?
Yeah. Okay. So I've a fairly different experience with school, because I went to like 5 schools before I went into high school. And that wasn't forced. That was like, well, it kind of was. Yeah. I mean, guess we're moving around, but when we first came up so we were living in Sydney. So I went to a school down there, had some good friends, and then we moved up to the Gold Coast, Australia, which is like an hour flight. And we went to a school, and at the time my dad was just getting started in his business. We had this house that we were building and stuff like that. So my parents were really trying to save money, I think, or they just really didn't know. So they sent me to a school that was like a little bit rough. Like, it was pretty rough when I was a kid. And, I've always had my dad's always done well with business. So I've always had kind of a sheltered life. And then like every single day I would come home with a blood nose and like just really unwell and sick. And yeah, it was pretty wild. So, parents took me out of that school, sent me to a different one, which was good. And then went through that school, and I was kind of just coasting by. I wasn't really doing much, and I was always fairly good at soccer. But that school was a co-ed school. So, at the time it was in like year 6, 7, like all I cared about was girls. Didn't really care about my sport. My sport was suffering. So my parents and I decided that we wanted to go to one of the best private schools on the Gold Coast, which is called the Southport School. And it is a part of this conglomerate called the GPS, which is all of the best schools in the state. And they play sport against each other. And that's where all of the kids, like if you look at all of the professional sports people in Australia, most of them went to these schools. So yeah, we went to that school, and then my first year was really quite rough. It was a tough challenge, because going to all boys, and then when you have kids that have gone to co-ed schools with boys and girls, they can pick on the girls and harass the girls, and the girls will vice versa. But now it's just boys picking on boys. So like I was like horribly bullied. I didn't enjoy my first year. Like, I wouldn't say bullied, but like I was soft really as well, because like people would say things and I would just like take it to heart. So it was a tough experience first moving there. And then a couple of years went by, and I started doing well in soccer and started making more friends. So I was okay. And then I moved to England to play soccer. So I was going over there to pursue like my soccer career, and we were intended to stay there for the next couple of years. And that was a real experience. So as you can imagine, like if I showed you my school in Australia, like it's this castle. Like my wife went there and said like, wow, this thing's freaking amazing. Like it looks over the water. It's amazing. It's like Hogwarts. And then I went to England like I was really sheltered. All of the kids were driving in the really nice cars, like 80 grand cars, like just as their first car. And then we went to England and we were put in, so there's postcodes in England, and then in the middle is the school. So there's postcode called, I think it's NG2, and then there's this other postcode that's like pretty rough, where all the council houses and very poverty stricken. But the school's in the middle of these two postcodes, and I had to go to this school. And this school was like a really, really rude awakening. Like, it was unbelievable, the stuff that went on there. So the gates were locked at 8:30, so you couldn't get in after that. There was police on site, security on site. You had to go through a metal detector if you were even a couple of minutes behind your schedule. And the bathrooms were, so it's like a big circle, and they're just toilet stalls, and then there's a security guard that sits there at lunch. So like boys and girls could be going in the same toilet, and then they wash their hands in the middle of the room, because there was so much violence in the toilets usually, because there's no cameras. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that was pretty wild. And then like, it was like, I'll just paint the picture of the school as well, is if kids got bullied, they had to leave school by 3:00, or they would have to be escorted home by police officers. So they would, the school would monitor the bullying through, the CCTV cameras and stuff like that. And if you were like a high risk kid, you would have to be escorted home by a police officer. Otherwise you would get beaten up. So it was pretty like, and as I said, the school was beautiful. Like, you had this key card to sign in everywhere. There was no money, because you had this card that you could tap and get your lunch, and they would check the card so you couldn't get it stolen. So it was really, really crazy how like much technology was built in the school. Like, and this was in, 2008, 2009. So it was really a weird time. And this school had a lot of money because the government was trying to, change the perspective. And the school also had a lot of mixed cultures. And at the time in the Gold Coast, there wasn't really many mixed cultures at my school. So we had this game where all of the African kids would throw this ball up, and they would say, "Kill the white boy." And whoever caught the ball, they would beat the living crap out of them. So it was like, but I was a soccer player, and I played for one of the local teams, which everyone supported. So everyone had their jerseys, everyone had jerseys with my number on the back and stuff like that. Like, so I was kind of like a local hero. And there's a hierarchy system in England sometimes with schools, and there's a kid called the top boy. And the top boy is the guy like no one messes with. Like, it's exactly how it sounds. And he was like this big guy, like he was crazy, and he would protect me, and like no one would mess with me. And I was friends with a lot of them. Like, I was easy to get along with. I was Australian. They thought I was different. So he would protect me, but he was crazy. Like, I saw him headbutt a kid through glass. Like, he put his head through glass. It was, yeah. So that was my schooling experience.
Wow. So I taught in the city. I taught elementary school. And I mean, I taught essentially in the projects.
Mm-hmm.
And it was rough. I mean, I had kids scratch me. I had kids fighting all the time. I had the glass on my door replaced because other kids would come and bang on it so much it would crack. But I mean, the picture you are painting, that's beyond what I experienced.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I've never experienced anything like that. Like, it wasn't like we were raised in a rough neighborhood or anything like that. Like, I have to give my parents credit. Like, they blessed me with such a sheltered life in a good way. I knew the world. Like, they taught me common sense. They taught me everything. But I was also very. And I mean, it was shocking for my mom. Like, my mom, she lived in the Philippines. She lived in, Western Sydney, where it was a little rougher, and she's seen people get shot and stuff like that. But she was like blown away by this school. It was just absolutely crazy. And like, you can imagine, my grades suffered, but also like, I always just wanted to play soccer, and everyone said, "Oh, it's okay. He's a really good athlete." So my grades never really mattered to anyone. And especially in England, because you know, we played like before I came to the school was losing like 8-0, 8-0, 10-0, like getting absolutely smashed. And we turned it around to where we were winning like 5-0 all the time, because I was there and we had two other kids that were on my soccer team who played, and we were just always winning. So all of the teachers were like, oh, stuff it, like, doesn't matter. Jason can hand in his homework late. You know, he's the soccer school, the team's doing well and stuff like that. So it, like, obviously I was only in year 9 or 10 and the grades are different there. Like in Australia, our school year is from January to December, or February to December. Whereas, you know, in America, it's, what is it? August
or
May.
September. Yeah.
Yeah, August to September. Yeah, so we have different school years, and in England it's the same as America. So when I came back to Australia, because we had to leave, like, obviously, you know, like my brother was there. You know, he got beat up. He got into really like bad incidents because he wasn't protected by being a great soccer player. You know, he was good and he was on the young team, but he wasn't playing for anyone else, so he couldn't, like, you know, people would just feel like he's an open target. So we had to come back. And then when we came back, I obviously didn't study while I was over there much. And I was put in all of the pre-vocational classes. So like, you know, I don't like, people have learning disabilities, but I just want to show how basic these classes were. It was, if you have 3 apples, you take 2 apples away. How many apples do you have? Like, and that was a grade 10 level class. And I was put into that because my grades were so bad. And eventually, like in the first semester, I pushed my way out of there. I'm like, no, I can't be with this, and moved on. But my math ability suffered dramatically. Like, I didn't know anything. These guys were talking Pythagoras theorem, algebra, all of this. I was like, what the heck is this stuff? But everyone was acting like it was so easy. But I was like, I've never been exposed to any of this. And so my last 2 years of high school really were, I didn't really care about my grades. My grades suffered. I think I got C's and D's. I would be cheating just to pass. I wouldn't study for assignments and stuff like that. But, you know, and my parents, mum, I was actually recently speaking to her about it. And like, she knew, but she always just knew that I was smart enough to get myself through it. And I just needed to push my way through school, because naturally I am quite, like, as a kid, I was quite smart. You know, in primary school, I got good grades, but, you know, that progression just really didn't help. So yeah, I fumbled my way through high school and then finally graduated. Luckily, I don't know how.
Wow. So when you went to England, it sounds like it's kind of where it fell apart academically.
Yeah, I would say that, but I wouldn't like completely blame England, because the schooling was good. Like, even though it was a rough school, it was good. It was more so my mindset of just being an athlete over school, which is something that I think America does quite well with the student athlete in college. We didn't have that. We had the athlete. Like, I was in training up in Brisbane, which is where I live now, which is an hour away from the Gold Coast. And I would have to leave class at lunch just to make training. So every single day I would miss 2 periods of class because I was an athlete, and the school was okay with it. Parents were okay with it, but I was missing like history and English and math every single week. Like, of course I was going to suffer in the long run.
Sure. And it sounds like it wasn't necessarily something in you. It's not like you couldn't handle the academics or whatever, but you weren't there. And it sounds like your environment was just so difficult. And then you had the focus on soccer, that school was just kind of, you were in school sort of, but it wasn't really a part of your life, I guess. There were too many other things.
I agree. Yeah, well, a school also, so I played representative soccer and I also played for the school. And the school, playing for the school is like one of the greatest honors you can have. You know, it's such a privilege. I played the other day in some alumni game, and it was such a great experience. And we would play we would train on Tuesday, Thursday, and then play on Saturday. So I was at school 6 days a week, you know, pretty much like 12 hours a day. And sometimes that we would miss like the last few periods on a Friday to travel somewhere and stay overnight. Like, yeah, just the environment wasn't conducive to good grades. You know, that you couldn't really, I think it's a lot better now. Like there is student athletes, but back when I was starting, I don't want to say back in my day, it was only 10 years ago, but it was like, wasn't as conducive for a good, both student and athlete.
So you barely graduated, but you graduated.
Yeah.
And then what
Yeah.
happened? What happened next?
So in Australia, our grades to get into university is quite tough. Like you have to be fairly good in high school. We have this stupid OP system and rank system where your grades are, you take, like an exit level thing. It's called the OP test, which is pretty much similar to an SAT exam. And you get a grade in that. And then, so say you get a 10, but your school gets like as a whole an average of like a 7, you could be brought down and get a 7, and the best score is a 1, so you could be brought down. But it's based on your grade and also the other schools in the area, like how well they're doing, and our school was horrible. So I was back here like really down, like in the 17s 20s, which is like really bad, and then my school just brought me back further higher. So my graduating score, or whatever the hell it was, I couldn't get into anything. Like no university, I couldn't get into art school, couldn't get into anything here. But I didn't really care. I was like, I don't really want to go to university anyway. I could just work for my dad and work my way up and take over his business, which is what I did as soon as I finished school. Like actually before I finished school, we had this like week-long celebration, and then the week after I was jumping in working for my dad, full time. So while all my friends were going to uni, I was working and dad at the time, we were moving warehouses. I was working from 5 a.m. till 6 p.m. every single night, just grinding, and then still playing soccer. And someone came up to me and said, do you want to play soccer in America? I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I do. So they said, all right, you're good enough. Let's get it sorted. And then eventually, came in contact with the coach over in America, and they said, yeah, we can make it work. And it's funny because I would like to say, my high school experience didn't really matter, but I was actually redshirted my first year, not because of my ability. Like the coach really wanted me to play and he did everything he could, but because I didn't take enough science classes in high school, and the NCAA said that I wasn't eligible. And I wasn't obviously eligible for Division 1 because I wasn't smart enough at all. So I was eligible for a Division 2 school, but I had to redshirt the first year.
And redshirt, what does redshirt mean?
Redshirt is where you have to sit out the year. So you can't play, you can train, but you can't play in games, which is tough, because that's been my life. So that was a really tough experience going through not being able to play, especially because that year our team was so good and we would have gone a lot further. We did go really far, but I just, wish I was on the team at the time. So that was tough, but I was in university at least.
So you essentially came over to America because you were invited to play soccer for a team.
Yeah. So the whole, how I was saying, the whole student athlete thing, I was like, okay, cool. I can now be an athlete and then focus on school, whatever. But because of being a red shirt, what else did I have to do? I had to train. I wasn't allowed to travel. So I was like, okay, I'll just jump into school. So I started doing decently. My first semester, you take, the usual Catholic traditions, basic classes that aren't very useful or pointless kind of. And but I was still doing well. I was getting A's and B's. And then my sophomore year, I was really that's when you can really take a lot more electives. And I really picked some electives there. And I was like, wow, I enjoyed this. And then, so I turned my schooling around because it was something that I was enjoying. And then my sophomore year, I was on the dean's list for both semesters. So, which I don't know what the average is. I think it's above a 3.5 GPA. And from sophomore year, junior year, kept going on the dean's list, and I was doing really, really well in school, and then I became, my undergrad degree was in entrepreneurship. I was entrepreneurship student of the year. I won the some award for a student athlete, like someone who excels in both as a student and as an athlete. And I won that scholarship, and then I won all of these awards, and I kept growing and then I was like president of all these business clubs and stuff like that. Like I kept growing my resume from school, which is like a complete 360 from high school.
Yeah.
But it was because I completely love and enjoy business, and I always have. But, you know, in high school, I'm learning English and history and other classes that I don't really care about. So transitioning to where I actually cared, it was a huge pivot. And then eventually, like, I went on and I got my MBA. So like from someone who barely graduated high school to become, you know, an MBA student with a 4.0, like it's a pretty big turnaround, which is, yeah, and what leads me to my experience now, I guess.
And you know, it's so interesting now because I feel like a lot of the people who I've been talking with lately, I've talked with high school dropouts, college dropouts. Very few people I feel like actually go on to study business or get their MBAs, and they're still highly successful. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
how does your school experience and discovering that you liked learning and you had a passion for this stuff, how do you think that has led you to be successful now? Like, was it helpful or is it a bunch of BS?
Well, so directly correlated to my degree, a lot of what I've learned, like, you know, we studied macro level accounting, and, you know, you have your micro and macro accounting, and the macro level accounting really doesn't, well, the micro level accounting really hasn't helped my business at all because it was American based and we do things a little different in Australia. But the fundamental concepts have really helped our business. You know, all of our financials, I manage all of that myself. And, you know, my mum also is quite good with being a bookkeeper. So I can manage all of that. I know how to set up all of our business structure. I know all of that. And I can also talk to other business owners on a much more intellectual level, because rather than just saying, oh yeah, we do digital marketing, I can actually speak to them about macroeconomics, microeconomics. I can speak to them all of the topics I've learned, but specifically the topics are taught so you can learn, not so you can apply them, I believe personally. So a lot of the topics we talk about, these theories of like XYZ company, when we should be looking at Apple, we should be looking at Google, Facebook, what they're doing. And I feel that wasn't covered enough in my undergraduate degree and my master's degree, because we didn't have that much real life experience, and that's come around to hurt. But I also wouldn't trade my degree for anything, because I think my degree was really, really valuable in the sense that I met some great people in my degree, and I met some great teachers and people who really have helped me along the journey. And that's the biggest thing I think a lot of people miss in college, is that they don't like take enough opportunity to meet as many people. That's probably one of the biggest takeaways in college.
Yeah, I'm definitely learning that having a network of people is so important. And people who are like-minded, especially if you're in the entrepreneurial community, you know, rather than people who think you're nuts. People are like, of course you should do that.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious, especially because I feel like, I mean, I barely even know what digital marketing is, to be honest. I mean, I know the tip of the iceberg, but how relevant were your classes compared to like today's practices? I know you said you have some of the, you know, the economic piece in developing your business, but I mean, how much of it is current?
None.
Okay.
Nothing at all. So, like, for example, Facebook advertising has taken off in the last few years. Like, we were told in some of our later classes when, you know, social media was really coming about, and they were like, just do social media. And I was like, oh yeah, sick. Like, what the hell is do social media? You know, they wouldn't really talk about it. Like, we had a class called internet marketing, and we were still talking about, you know, Google ads and like banner ads and stuff like that, which is still relevant, but we weren't talking about the platforms that were relevant right now, like YouTube advertising, Facebook advertising, direct response marketing, all of that, or like email marketing, any of that sort of thing. We didn't really cover in depth. And the biggest thing is that I don't think colleges ever will be able to cover that. I think college can teach the theory of like a sales strategy using, because the traffic pieces are always going to change. Like Facebook might not be around next year, and that's fine. I'll just move on to the next traffic piece and execute and be really good at that. So that's the trouble that college is running into. And a lot of my learnings was outside of college because it had to be. I had to take courses. I had to learn from people. I had to spend hours on YouTube figuring out the minute things of Facebook. So I would say that, you know, directly with digital marketing, my degree hasn't helped execute in the business at all. Like actually the day-to-day practice of the business definitely hasn't helped at all.
Yeah, but sure, that I think that understanding piece is huge. And that's something that I'm facing. Like, I don't know. I always did well in school. I was a straight A student pretty much all the way through, college and getting my master's degree, but I don't know anything. Like, I really don't know anything. Not about current business practice, but not anything to inform my global knowledge and how that will affect my business as I move forward. So I'm facing like, holy crap, what do I need to start learning? But so you said taking courses and YouTube, I like to call it, YouTube University, because we can learn just about anything on YouTube now. How did you dive in and learn? What were your best resources?
My best resources were definitely YouTube. Like that was the big thing. Anytime, like I always say to my dad, I'm like, Dad, I can literally do anything you need technology wise in your business. And he goes, oh, okay, cool. Can you do this? And I would just go and Google it. Like that's how we are. We know both my brother and I, business partner, we are very much, you need this done. Okay, we'll go and figure it out. We pride ourselves on being really good at Google and YouTube. And that's how a lot of, and I don't think a lot of people are as resourceful in that sense, is that's how they miss out on building their business, is don't go and try to find an expert and ask them and message them all these questions. Like I get thousands of questions all the time. Like go and YouTube it, go and figure it out, watch 4 videos. If you can't figure it out, then message an expert and see how that goes. I think that my education on the back end after school was through YouTube. I've taken a few courses, and then I'm always just learning more every single day. That's like always the goal, right?
Yeah. And just the whole idea is you're learning more, you realize that there's so much more that you don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you attribute that like self-motivation, that drive that clearly you had to get yourself going?
Well, Mike actually, for context for people listening, Mike is how we were kind of introduced. Him and I have talked a lot about this, because it's in part of his coaching program, is that what is that drive? Like, what is it? And I always attribute it to the word, I like to use the word relentless. Actually, it's funny if people want to look up, if anyone wants to look up relentless.com, that's actually what Amazon was going to be called. So if you go to relentless.com, it just bounces to Amazon.
I didn't know that.
Which is, yeah. So that's what Amazon was going to be called. And my brother and I are like really fascinated by that, because we like the word relentless. We want to use it in a lot of our marketing, because relentless is being consistent and being persistent, just not stopping. Like there's a brick wall, okay, I'm relentless. I'm going to hit the wall 100 times until it breaks. And that's what Chris and I have always been like. And like with me, with sports, I've always had an injury, and I've dealt with a lot of injuries in my career, knee surgeries, my kneecap slips out of place, ankles, hips, the works. And it was always get back up, go to physio every single day, and then get back to it. It's just relentless. Like that's all it is. And a lot of people, I have people messaging me saying, oh, I haven't signed a client, in 2 months. And I'm like, sometimes it took us 6 months and we didn't have any clients to sign, but on the 6th month, we were still doing the same thing we were doing on month 1, working our ass off, trying to get more clients. It's just consistent, just keep going. That's all it was for me. And then you put yourself in a cycle. Like, I know that it's like, people might say, oh yeah, it sounds easy, but if you just keep getting up and doing it over and over and over again, you become that, it's so habitual that it's easy for you to do the tasks where you don't actually need that external motivation. You don't need the drive, because you've already done it, even like, and I always think that Can't Hurt Me book is a really good example of it. He always says, like, when you're tired, just keep going, because then it's done. Like once it's done, it's done. And then the next day you'll be like, oh, this is easy now. And then you can keep growing and adding that 20% every single day. And that's all you need to do. And that's how you can just stay on the path to success, really, is just being consistent.
I have not read that book. It is on my list. I read Jess Itzler's book, Living with the Seal, or 30 Days with the Seal, or whatever.
Yeah.
About living
And that,
with David Goggins before people knew who he was.
Yeah.
And I mean, that one was hysterical and it really spoke to me. And then I saw Jess speak on stage last year. But I haven't gotten to Can't Hurt Me, but I feel like it's one I definitely need to read.
I would, if you're an audiobook listener, I would definitely go audio, because they break it down. Him and the author, the ghostwriter, break it down, and like they talk about these stories and just add so much more dimension to it. But some of the stories, like I listened to it in the gym, and I was like in my rest period, and one of his stories, I was just sitting there like, oh my God, like what?
Yeah.
And it's really, but the book really resonates with me because I've been on this relentless, I've been using that word a lot when I've been speaking to Mike about it. And the book really resonated because he was just relentless every single day. Like he lost 106 pounds in 3 months, like just ridiculous stuff to get him to where he was. And all it was relentless. Wake up every day at 4 a.m., go for a 2-hour run, go to the gym, go for a swim in the afternoon, like every single day. So that's it.
Yeah. And there's times it's going to suck. He's the one, he says, embrace the suck, right? Is that him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. He just says like, embrace that, just work with it, use it, it's only going to make you better.
Yeah. And that it's okay when it sucks and it's okay when it's hard, but if you stick with it, that's where the success comes. One of my students today, like just before I was talking with you, said this most amazing quote. I'm like, I've got to find some way to use this and owe him for it. But he said, success doesn't just happen to you. You have to make it happen to you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's that whole idea of being persistent and just taking action and just keep doing it. And the people who fail and stop are the ones who aren't going to be successful. But the people who fail or have it hard but keep going, they're going to get to that success.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was first starting, I would hear people say this, right? And I would listen. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. But what the heck do I do? Like when I'm starting my business. And my advice and what I did is absolutely anything I could, whether it was I would walk down the street, write down the names of these businesses, go and Google them, and then message them saying what's wrong with their digital presence. I would go on LinkedIn, go through all of these people's information, look at their Facebook page, message them, hey, you're missing this. Go on Google and go through the list of people running ads and go, hey, you're not remarketing on Facebook. You're losing, all of your traffic. I would do all of those steps consistently. And then like I have this list of 20 ways we got our first customers. And this list really like breaks down all of those things. And I literally did all of those things. And I found a couple that worked. And then I stuck with those 5 and just did them every single day. Like just massive action. And a lot of people say massive action, but if you can just consistently get up and go and freaking do it, then you're going to get results eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Any influencers that you followed to kind of help you get to where you are? I know you said you took a couple courses. I don't know if that was related there.
Yeah. So influencers that got me started are different to influencers that I've really listened to today. Everyone in my space, in the digital marketing space, is definitely like started off with Gary Vee, of course, like always harping on the digital marketing side of things. But I've recently moved away from his side of things when I'm more focused on, because he's very hustle mentality. And I know that he is very self-aware and he talks about how you need sleep and all that sort of thing. But I feel that his content is still hustle mentality. So I've been kind of swaying away from that because I always have that mentality. Like that's just me. But I'm the person that needs to stop having that and like go and hang out and relax. So like, I don't need more, like, I don't need to feel guilty for my relaxation time. So I really try to limit how many people I follow, but Russell Brunson is really good in the digital marketing space. It's very practical and tactics. But I've taken a few Tony Robbins courses, all of the big guys I've always really listened to. Recently, I've gotten to Ed Milet's podcast, which is really quite good. Yeah, and I'm open to what a lot of people say, and if I resonate with them, then I'll just continue on with their work. There's a lady called Kat Howell, and she teaches Facebook ads that convert, and her course was the one that really got us into Facebook ads and has got our Facebook ad campaign. Now we're a Facebook partner, and we really owe it to her course.
I haven't heard of her. How did you find her?
She does what she preaches, what she teaches. So she's freaking great at Facebook ads. Like every single day I see her face on Facebook because she's so good at what she does. So, I mean, if like some people that own digital marketing agencies and then they don't even have a good Facebook profile on a Facebook profile or an Instagram profile, I'm like, well, why the heck would anyone want to work with you if you can't even do that for yourself?
Yeah.
But she does exactly what she preaches. So that's someone I want to learn from.
Got it. I had a thought about something that you said earlier that I wanted to ask you about, and now I forget what it was. Oh, the whole niching down thing. So for people listening who don't know what we're talking about, a lot of times when you're studying kind of entrepreneurship and starting your own business now, a lot of experts will say niche down, like make your audience, the person you're selling to, whether it's a product, a service, whatever it is, like to the smallest possible kind of crowd. But you're saying you didn't do that at all.
Yeah. And I, like all of my teachings, everything that I've learned, I've always said that. But I was fortunate enough to be like thrown into like 5 different worlds when I first started. So what I would suggest there is with, the niching down thing is that what I did is the biggest problem was that I was in all of these different industries for Facebook for my digital marketing agency. But then what I did, and that was way too much work. We have 5 different clients offering 5 different services. So what we did is we stuff this, let's pick what we're really freaking good at, which was Facebook ads and sales funnels, and then only offer that. So that became our niche, but it didn't matter what industry we were in because we were only offering one product, and that made it a lot easier to sell. So there is different ways of niching down. Like I would never recommend someone to have all of these services when it's just you. Pick one service, maybe pick one niche or 2 niches in, different industries that you want to target, and then go from there. Like I definitely think that narrowing down is a good idea, but we were fortunate enough to have all of these different experiences. But the best thing was picking one product, which was essentially our niche.
How big is your team?
It's just me and my brother. We have contractors that we work with. We have partners that we work with. We would have 5 to 10 partners that we work with at any one time, but we don't need to hire anyone at this stage just because the work's so scalable. Sure. And we're getting to that point where we need to scale other side of the business. So we need to hire someone. But we just try to keep it as lean as possible at the start.
Got it. Drink your water. It's okay.
Yeah.
So you have this hustle attitude, this relentless attitude. Do you have any habits, rituals, routines that help just keep you on track every day? I know a lot of people have like a die-hard morning routine or meditation or whatever it may be. Like what keeps you going?
Yeah, so I did have a really strict morning routine, and I'd like to implement that a bit more. But recently it's kind of just been wake up, have my smoothie, my protein shake every morning, and then jump straight into work. And that's not a very effective routine. I wouldn't recommend that, but that's something that's kind of worked for me because I get so much energy off the things that I do and what I do. So when I jump into work, it's not like I need to recharge and get energized for the day, because when I first see 5 comments saying, wow, Jason, that really helped me. Wow, I just signed a $20,000 a month deal. I don't even need any meditation or anything to get that energy. And I really do. I really like, and I like meditation. I like all of that side of things. I like the psychology, but at the moment, my work is feeding me enough, so I don't need to get fed anywhere else. I guess that's, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I also, yeah, I'm also very strict in my afternoons. Like I finish work around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then we go straight to the gym every single night. And that's my relaxation, I guess, time. This thing that I really need every day. You know, some days we don't make it, but when we do, like, that's really important and really helps me.
Yeah. When I think that just goes to show, I mean, everybody works differently. Everybody generates their own energy differently, and that you have to be aware of what works for you, and you do what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
in the mastermind, I'm piloting a mastermind for teens, and we're looking at these kinds of habits, and I'm bringing them to the table, and they're practicing them, but choosing the ones that work for them. You know, I'm not
Yeah.
saying, hey, you have to do this, hey, you have to meditate every day, because
Yep.
you don't want to do it, or if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to help.
Yeah, and it's not that like meditation doesn't work for me, because it really does, and I really enjoy it. It's just like that. I don't know. I've found like I'm drawn to jump straight into work as soon as I wake up, because that's what's, lights me up. That's what brings me joy. So why not start that straight away?
Exactly. And if it's bringing you joy, then absolutely.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say problem. I was going to say I have that problem. I wake up and I want to jump straight into work. I'm like ready to go.
Yeah.
But I have a morning routine that I'm trying to stick to, because really that's the only alone time I get during the day. Because I am
Hmm.
home with my kids during the day, and once they wake up, I'm with them. And then in the
Yep.
afternoons, I do my business stuff. So if I don't
Hmm.
protect that morning routine, even if I want to do work, that's it. I've lost my alone time. So I try and
Yep.
really get my stuff in the morning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the morning routines are really important. And like what as I had a better routine when I was commuting to an office, like when we had an office instead of having the home office. I had a better morning routine because I'd wake up a lot earlier and get everything ready for the day. But now when the home office is here, like yeah, I should be better about that.
But if it works for you, it works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got your gym time in the evening. It sounds like that works for you. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, I'll leave it here. Is there anything you want to say? Any words of wisdom to the kids and families who might be listening?
Yeah, I would say that one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on is that your grades and all of I mean, they're not really, sometimes they're subjective, but the subjective measures that school puts on you isn't always a reflection of your ability or your smarts, if you will, or your knowledge. Like, I was a very smart kid, but I was getting C's and D's. Like, the C's and D's, like, shouldn't say that I'm dumb and I'm an idiot. Like, I think that needs to change, is that there's kids that get bullied for getting bad grades, like, you're not dumb if you get bad grades, but also at the same time, you should be holding yourself more accountable and have more pride and try to get better grades and try as hard as you can in school, because I think that sets you up. Is that if you're consistent when you're younger, then that just keeps you going. Like I was consistent in the weight room, in running, in sports. So that's what set me up for business, because that consistency, that routine, that drive was always built in there. And if you don't have sports, then you can build that drive and consistency through school and then take that into your life in entrepreneurship or whatever you want to do. A lot of people hate on universities and schools and say that, if you're in business, you don't need to go anymore. And while I agree somewhat, I think that those habits really set you up for the rest of your life and the connections that you make. I have hundreds of friends all over the world because of college. So yeah, that's what I'll leave them with.
I like that. What about, I'm sorry, this made me think of something else. So I have a lot of students who are self-proclaimed lazy. They say they're lazy,
Hmm.
or they say their families call them lazy, or their teachers call them lazy, but most of all, they believe they're lazy. Any any great ways to get them to change that? Because like you said, anyone can be relentless. You do it. But how do we
Hmm.
convince them that they can do it?
My brother is one of the laziest people you'll ever meet, but he's also one of the smartest. And he got very, very good grades because he showed up every single day. He took the tests. He listened slightly in class, but he was there every single day. And that's how you can get good grades, is that half the battle, and people say this all the time, half the battle is showing up. And when you are there, showing up is showing up fully and being engaged and being in the conversations in class. Just once you can do it for 2 or 3 weeks, if you just can find that motivation, like whatever you need to do, like motivation doesn't always last, and people always say that, but motivation, if you need motivation to get you to school, like watch that video, watch that sports highlight, whatever, get you there. And then just when you're there, just try that big extra just to do it. And then once you are doing it consistently, it'll just flow and it'll grow for the rest of your life, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally becomes a habit, and clearly you've developed that habit. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It was great getting to know you a little bit, and I'm totally going to show up more in your Facebook group.
Yeah. Good to hear. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I will catch you later.
All right. Cheers, Carrie.
Bye.